Hello, I'm Mary Rudder from the Harvard-Kent School in Charlestown, and I teach kindergarten. I use the Star Festival CD-ROM as part of our unit on Japan and places in the world. I also use it as a connection between family life, family roots, and just to make the adventure more real. We start our adventure on our airplane, which the kids painted and designed, and then we prepare for our trip by packing our suitcases, which of course are made of paper since kindergarten is the paper capital of the world. Inside the suitcase is a plain piece of white paper, and the children are asked to draw the things that they think they will need on their trip. And sometimes you get what they would need. Some children want to bring all the toys they own, and one of the boys this year wanted to bring an ice cream machine. Unfortunately, when he went through customs in Japan, they would not let him in. They made him take it out of his suitcase. Of course, I am the customs official. After we prepare, we also have our airline tickets. And since we will be traveling to several places on the earth, on the world, there are several categories that it lists the places we will be going. Tokyo is our first stop, although our trip will bring us all the way to Hiratsuka, which is where the Star Festival takes place. The children have a ticket in their boarding pass, and quite a few children understand what a boarding pass is, so when they received this, they thought the trip was almost real. A few of the children went home and said, "I'm going to Japan tomorrow, but you don't need to worry, Mom, because I'm going to be home by 8 o'clock tonight." So I also issued them a passport, put their picture in it, had them sign their name, checked to see if they knew their address, because this is an important factoid that kindergarten children are expected to learn. A few didn't know, went home and found out. Their birth date, again, a few didn't know. Left a space on the back for the stamps for when they go through customs. So as you can see, we are in Japan. So in the afternoon, because it's an 18-hour flight from Boston, we board the ship, we board the airship just before we're leaving and for the day, and I collect their tickets and their suitcases and stow them under board, and behind the airplane is seats. And they sit in rows, just as they would in an airplane, and they say, "Oh, when are we going to be in Japan?" And I will tell them, "You have to go home tonight, go to bed in your own bed, and when you come back in the morning, we will be almost in Japan." So they come in the following morning, and when they came in, the Japanese house is up. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Before we start our trip, I want the children to know where in the world they are and where they've come from. So we make a big mural map, which they help paint. Of course, you will notice that some of the continents aren't quite correct, because when they get the paint in their hand, they tend to start painting areas that should be water and end up to be land, and land that should be water, or land that ends up to be water. So, but it has a general feeling for it. And I send home a questionnaire asking the parents, because most of the children in the class come from other countries. In fact, just about everybody in America comes from another country if you trace back far enough. And they are asked just to write the child's name, and if you have, I mentioned mom, dad, grandparents, what countries they come from. And when they come in, I've already used the same pictures that we have on the passports to make a little card, which we'll mount on our map with a line that will go from the girl's name or boy's name to Boston to wherever they came from. So the children will actually be able to see where in the world their family came from. And it's quite interesting, and they become very proud. In fact, the parents came in when they saw the map up and said, "Oh, this is where I come from." So they didn't know I was going to ask them the question. So I think they'll really be thrilled when they see their kids up with the name connected. I think it's just important because it gives them a sense of, where they came from. And it also sort of gives value to their background. It was interesting that I sent home, because we will be doing this paper, and we will be doing a family tree, but I didn't ask for a family tree. One of the kids came back with it all written on the back of the paper. So I thought, this is perfect, because when we start looking at Shigeru's family tree and we start doing our own, here Juan has his all done. Only we'll probably do it on a bigger piece of drawing paper so you can see it. And I'll have him script the words. So I think that it's interesting the things you come out with and the things that come out of the study. Because I want to go to Hiratsuka, because part of our adventure in Japan is the big festival. And what we will be doing as we travel with Shigeru through the different points, going to the train station, or from the train station on the bus, looking to see how it's the same as what they're used to or how it's different from what they know. They were thrilled to see the subway station, the train station, because they noticed right away it didn't look like a train station that they are familiar with. And they could see the little shops in the background. So they were, wow, that's really pretty. So I think that's interesting that now they're thinking of what they know and they're learning something different. I'm going to bring you over to our house. And the bell's going to toll. I should sit on the floor, but I won't, because I'll never get up again. This is Haruko, and she's named after a little girl I met in Japan when I went on a visit. And so when I came back, I thought kids like to relate to other kids. And before I introduce Shigeru on the CD, Haruko introduces her grandmother's house, because I don't want the children thinking that every child in Japan lives in a house that's a traditional Japanese style house. That most of the children, when they talk to them, would probably live in an apartment. But they would probably have a tatami mat on the floor, and they might have the kodatsu at their table, or they might have a Weston table. So I think it's important that they know some of the things that the children in Japan are doing now. In fact, we have Japanese e-pals, which is really a great deal of fun. They're first graders, but they are kind enough to write to us. I show Hirako in her regular clothes, but I have this little angel that was sitting up here, and the kids all said, "What is that? What is that?" And then they said, "She has wings, she has wings." So I said, "Oh, what do you think this is?" And they recognized right away, she's an angel. And I said, "Why would I want to have her around?" And, "Oh, she's good luck." And I said, "But what's she wearing?" And we talked about, she has the kimono on, and she has the gita shoes. So it's sort of like a tie between the old and the new. And I think the CD-ROM does that a lot when you see the older pictures and, the festival dress. I think it's important for them to recognize it. I tie in a lot of literature, and I introduced the story by saying it's her favorite. So they think, this is great, if she liked this story. And they sit with her after the story is read, and we'll reread it or go through the pages together, or they'll all sit around the table and try to, look at the pictures and talk to her. We had our friends in, and we were singing songs together, and they were making our hands clap, because they wanted her to, we're clapping, they wanted her to clap. So they were like really including her as part of the classroom. I think it's important for the children to really become involved in things to make it important to them. And I told them today, they noticed the festival decorations on the opening screen and on some of the pictures that they saw. And they said, "Oh, look at that," especially the dragon. "Look at the dragon." I said, "Oh, that's part of the festival. And we're traveling on this train to go to Hiratsuka because we're going to be part of the festival. And we will plan at the end of 2 weeks of reading stories about Japan, true, and mostly a lot of folk tales. It allows them to process the story, tell what it's about. They pick out their favorite part, they read it, and they thrilled me today. They they read the Wise Old Woman, and it sort of teaches why it's so important to respect elderly. And they took their favorite part, and then they all stood and they started to write all they're sounding out their words, which is, we're doing writers' workshops, so this is like a big thing. I was so proud of them, and they're going, oh, I got that, and they could read it. So I think it's, you know, even though we're doing Japan, we're still doing language arts. We're still doing writing. So I try to keep that connection and keep it tied in. So I told them that the festival, we will be having a festival, and we will need to do all the decorations just like they see in the movie and or film, and that we will be inviting our pals down the hall to come in and partake of all the festivities. And I said, because I knew I didn't want to have 5 kindergarten groups all in here at once, I said, you know, it takes a few days, so we'll probably have it several days with one class in, you know, each sitting. So they were, oh, okay, we're ready. So I think I think this is really going to be a great adventure. All the past years I've done it. It's been a learning experience for the children and for myself. They always find a new angle or a different part to key in on. And this, especially this class, I think they're really keyed in on. Just they really think they're there. They really, and I think that hearing the noises, seeing the sights, going on the bus ride, seeing the fish market. I have to tell you, the fish market, the girls saw the fish market. One girl was, I love fish sticks. And so I'm like, they're cutting the fish up into big sections. I said, oh, that's nice. Well, you'll see all the fish later. And she goes, and I said, well, this is where it comes from. This is what happens before it's made into fish sticks. So here we'll be talking about how food comes to the table. You know, what happens? It doesn't just materialize into fish sticks. We didn't just go out to the river and pull up the fish sticks. So I think it's important for, you know, to see that we need food. People in Japan need food. People in China need food. We basically are all different, but we all have the same kinds of needs. So, I don't know. It's an adventure. Want to see the old picture? This is a class I had that even at the very end of the day, they were trying to work, because I totally identified with Shigeru on the film, and they were looking at it, and even when they had their coats on and they're waiting for their parents to take them home, they would still go and explore on different parts of the computer. Do I have a minute to tell you about the book? Sorry, I forgot. This is a project I was involved in. It's a really adventure. And so this is the story of Shigeru when he was in Japan, because the story on the CD-ROM is when he's grown up. So this takes all the information from the CD-ROM and makes it into a story that a teacher or a parent or a librarian could read to the children. And it shows real pictures, and it also shows beautiful drawings. And I think that it's a story that about his family before he left, and sort of how he had a very happy, joyful life with his family, and after it shows them all the things he does with his going to the shrine, fishing with his grandfather, visiting his grandfather's shoe shop, things that were just an integral part of his life. Going to the model shop, and then to have, you know, when he's 9 or 10, to be taken from his home roots and just brought over into a very strange world where he didn't speak the language and he didn't, you know, really understand or know any of the culture because he wasn't exposed to it, and then to have to deal with that, and how he quickly became more Americanized, that after a year or so, when he found out that a letter he had sent to his grandfather was totally in English, and his grandfather couldn't read it, and he hadn't even realized that he had done that. So I think a lot of the children I have bilingual children, and a lot of them have, you know, 2 languages or even 3 languages. And I think this sort of really, they understand that maybe sometimes I say things to them, they don't quite understand what it is because it's not familiar to them. But this sort of connects to their own life. And I think that when you see Shigeru going back into Hiratsuka and visiting the old haunts that he went to and looking at the old photographs, you can see, you know, how much he changed and how much he grew and how he would have that feeling he's not quite sure which culture he belongs to. And maybe that's how a lot of our children feel.